Well, I did say we were going to change topics on this edition, but I think we have to touch it one more time on all these Vic allegations. But before we start, well, if you like the programming here at Q2Cast TV and Man with the Show, you could help support us by basically going to teespring.com, whereas we have several products there, t-shirts, hoodies, mugs. Proceeds go to help support this channel. Also, you can go to buymeacoffee.com, where you can buy me a cup of coffee, or one, two, or even more. Proceeds from that also goes to new programming and current shows here on Q2Cast TV. Well, we've had a lot happen over the weekend. The banning of certain YouTubers on Twitter, some people that have been pro-Vic. They've also been banned on Twitter. Now we're getting some people that are getting complaints from YouTube telling them to take down certain pictures, certain videos, because they're getting complaints from other people on there, some of the accusers. This is getting a little ridiculous on the situation. We also have, people that Vic work with that are just literally throwing him under the table, under the bus, however you want to say, which is, it's really bad. It's gotten really bad. But what we're going to do here, I'm not going to go into talking anymore about the case right now at the moment, but we are going to talk in a way about the case, but we're going to do it in a different perspective. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of time travel. And basically, I'm going to show you a couple things that basically some news stories from just more recently and more a little bit back a bit and way, we're going to go back as far back as the 1920s. Yeah, that's right. And we're going to finish with basically a woman by the name of Virginia Rapp, which basically, if you don't know that name, I'm going to tell you later, and we're going to end with that. But you may say, well, Zane, what are you going to start with? Are you going to start with the Virginia thing? Or are you going to start with Kavanaugh? No, I'm not going to touch any of these that are just like really in the highlight of the news, because a lot of them are politically, it's a lot crazy, still ongoing. Like Vic's it's still ongoing. And basically, the ones I want to talk about are stuff that's been pretty much adjudicated somewhat, that they've gone through a court. Some of them are tragic. I mean, a couple of the stories you're going to hear this, they're going to be very, very tragic because of the outcomes. So, let's start off. Let's go back a little bit to 2016. To Bridgeport in Connecticut. There was a case. Basically, police were responding to a hospital that basically a young woman, 19-year-old college student, was raped by two football players. Basically, it was investigated. Basically, these players, the college told them to pack up and leave, and basically without even the investigation being finished or anything like that, or even started, they were told to leave. And basically, you figure, oh wow, this is a bad story. This girl was raped. It was at a party situation. Two guys raping her. What we found out is during the case itself, the statements were checked, the evidence and everything, and then we found out that it was false. That this 19-year-old girl, her name was, and I'm sorry if I butcher it, Nikki Jovino, and she made false accusations to the two men. Basically, she wanted to impress another young man to hope that he would bring sympathy to the situation. So she herself took it upon herself to throw these two guys under the truck or under the train, however you want to put it, and basically that they could have gone to jail for the rest of their lives, ruining their lives completely, because these guys, one of them was working on a scholarship that he wanted to continue in media, and basically just ruined their lives because she wanted to like another young man that she was sort of infatuated with. Well, what comes down to it, and as you could see, they didn't really throw the book, but she is sentenced to 1 year in jail because of this. Now, you can see the situation is, she had people behind her, and they said, "Oh my God, we were with you, we understand you, we need to be heard to the situation." But it all turned out to be false. And this is, like I said, this is where we have to always be careful. Innocent until proven guilty. And people out there online that, they talked about that, oh, that's only in a court of law. In the court of the people, you're guilty and always going to be guilty. But see, that's wrong. We're built on this country on the laws that our forefathers gave us. And basically, whether you like it or not, you can have an opinion on the case and say, well, I think he's guilty, but still not to slam when the judgment comes down and say, hey, listen, she lied, plain and simple. She lied. She wanted to take advantage of the situation. And, and if you ever watch the video on her, she is like, she's looking like her eyes are rolling up, and, she tried to make an excuse for that. But if you look at, you look at the pictures and stuff like that, she didn't care. She wanted to get what she wanted. And, she got caught. Now, you might say that we go a little further and talk, there's another one of the Blake situation, the NFL. I can do that next. But no, I'm going to go back even further. We're going to jump back. And actually, this has just been adjudicated recently. But we're going to jump back to January 1991. Basically, a woman runs over to a patrol car in New York City, in Harlem, and says that basically she was raped by 3 black men who she identified. Now, you might say this is cut and dry, the whole situation. Basically, there were 3. As far as the police arrested 2 men. And basically, the investigators, they didn't have any physical evidence. The semen that was recovered didn't even match the two accused men. I mean, you might say, hey, it might have been the 3rd guy. We don't know that. Basically, most of what it is, the testimony was heavily on her. And basically, like, once again, it says we have to believe her. We have to believe her. I'm astonished that, yes, we do have to take precedence and understanding when a woman is raped. But, when it comes to a case like this one is unbelievable. If you read the transcripts on this is an unbelievable case in itself. And basically, with very minimal evidence, a jury in 92 convicted both men. In fact, they had weapons on them, and they didn't even charge them for the weapons. So basically, they didn't charge them that they were holding weapons, and they ended up in prison for about 11 years. 11 plus years. They were given 11 years. And then for one guy, and the other gentleman got 26 years for that. Now, basically, Years goes by, they're in prison, and basically what happens is there was a reinvestigation in it more recently, and basically the DNA was retested, and it turned up another person that basically was on the FBI database. And basically the case was redone, was looked at, and the gentleman that got 26 years, he got exonerated. And this is just recently. I mean, he spent a lot of time in jail, and the reason, and most of the reason, and she recanted too, basically the reason she did it was basically, the problem is that she was a drug addict, and basically the other two gentlemen were known to her, and basically what happened was, I think they attacked her boyfriend at the time, and basically she wanted to get revenge on them. The old saying, 2 wrongs don't make a right on this case. But yet, when you look at it, and you'll say to yourself, she accused them, people believed her, 2 men went to jail. There's an organization called the Innocent Project, which basically helps with cases like this. They're a nonprofit group, and they took time to look into this case. And basically, they helped to basically get the conviction, overturned because of this situation. And it's a shame, these guys, hey, they were not good guys, but they didn't deserve what they got. They were accused of rape, and they went to prison. One, it's 2019. He just got out last year. He was vindicated, and he was allowed to, get out of jail last year. That's a long time. That's a long time to find out, just to clear up your life. And the thing is people going to look at him the same way again? No, they're not. I mean, as not saying that he was a great, he had his faults, but he did not deserve that as well. Now, if you notice, you might say to yourself, well, what, when you look at the last couple of cases that we talked about before this long one, and you say to yourself, well, Zane, there was no Twitter then, really. Twitter was just a little baby at the time. People were just starting on the internet in that situation at the beginning of the case and all that. And the other cases, I can understand, people got a little bad on that. But this older one, really the internet weren't involved. No, you're right. You're correct. But you still had news media. We were just starting the 24-hour news cycle back when this case started. And basically, these were the news stories you heard. But understand that most of these older stories were driven by news media and by the people, the voice of people that were basically shaking their fist at these cases. Now, we're going to move on to another case, and we're going to draw back the time way back. We're going to go back way back on there, and we're going to go back to the 80s. Yes, that's right. The 1980s, the mid-1980s, which I did like at the time, because we didn't have to deal with that many computers at the time, because computers were just really starting out. I mean, it took us a long time to get on the internet. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have any of the things we have now. YouTube. I think we were close to MySpace at this point. I got to look at the dates on there. MySpace, I think, was toward the beginning. But still, even, there was not much to basically on there. It took a long time to upload things for you guys that wonder how long it took to upload a porn movie. See, you were thinking that in the mind. But not, all joking aside, going with this particular story, and this one's a sad one, and how this ended did not end very well. A Texas Tech student was raped. Basically, she went to the police. She basically reported it, and basically she picked out photos of the man that did it. And basically, it was a gentleman who was he was an Army veteran. And basically, this girl identified him and said that he did it. And basically, the gentleman was like, no, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. I just don't know, I was nowhere near this or anything like that. And you might say, well, it's he said, she said, the whole situation. We got to follow through and believe what this girl said. Basically on that. Yeah, the case lasted less than a week. Talk about fast judgment in the 80s. And he was convicted and sentenced to 25 years. Now hold that present in your mind, like the other one. He was put away for 25 years in prison. And his mother basically was like up and down. It says she's professing his innocence, same thing with his brother, and the whole situation. And the one thing that just kept going on to this is that another person came across and admitted to it, but yet he still was serving the time for it, and in jail, they offered him many deals. They said, listen, you can get out this way. You can take parole. He refused parole. He refused, because he says hey, listen, if I'm not, basically guilty of this. And why should I take parole for something I didn't do that's going to make me look guilty? But when it came down to it, someone else admitted to it. And you might say, oh, that's great. Someone admitted to it. He would get out of jail. Well, unfortunately, by the time things got close to be vindicated, in December of 99, the Army veteran, his name was Cole, died in prison from complication of asthma. He was an asthmatic. And basically, you have to think to the perspective. He died. He died in prison. And, he didn't finally get vindicated till the 2000 era. 2010, he signed, Governor Rick Perry signed a parole for him, finally at that time period. And, they finally, he didn't get his innocence until the 2000 era, 1985 to 2000, and died in prison. And basically the court of opinion again was believe the person what they're saying. Don't believe the facts, and don't believe the evidence. And again, I would say facts and evidence is very important. And you might say, well, that's in a court of law. Again, facts and evidence, because basically right now what's going on, there's a lot of lawsuits coming out now because of people saying things that basically are untrue, unsubstantiated, and you may say to yourself, well, I have, it's my opinion and all that. Yes, but when you start to verbally abuse the situation, you have to be careful what you say. A lot of times when you look at these cases, especially the ones that are misidentity, is that you know, you have to take it where, you know, if someone says, well, I know it was this guy, and not realizing that it was happening, that the person didn't really look at it, and you're just not focusing on the situation because of the traumatic that is happening, not stepping back and saying, I have to think of what happened. You know, you're pushing on someone else under the train, and you might be accusing the wrong person, or you might be mistaken in how things happen. A touch, a hug, a kiss, you might misunderstand that. So let's move a little further back, and I'm talking way back. And this we're going to finish off on this. And you know, I was going to say about this woman, her name is Virginia Rapp. And if you not familiar with Virginia Rapp was an actress back in the 1920s. And basically, if you haven't heard of this name, it's basically, this was an actor who basically was very famous back then. Would have been back then, the highest paid actor in Hollywood history back then. Today, he'd be worth $13 million. Back then, he was paid $1 million to be in movies, and he was a good actor, very funny on there. And if you haven't heard of him, it's Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. And actually, at the time, he was the highest paid actor in the world. You know, because basically he made a deal with the movie company. I think it was Paramount at the time. And like I said, it's unheard of an actor at that time getting $1 million. I mean, he had to be that good of an actor, and he was. Now, you have to think at the same time period, another big thing that was going on was prohibition. You know, you had prohibition laws, which basically, you know, everybody was having these parties off to the side and everything like that. And there was a party that Fatty Arbuckle had in a hotel in San Francisco, which Virginia Rapp was there in attendance as well. Now, basically, what happened was the party, you know, of course, like every other big Hollywood party, got out of a little control, especially in the 1920s, and especially the type of liquor, you know, because a lot of that liquor was, you know, bathtub gin, you know, and it got a little crazy, and I'm talking really crazy. Well, the way that this party night went, it just didn't end up to be good. Now, on both ends of the track, the real big thing, the media was really heavy on this case. And basically, before we go to what had happened, there's going to be another person who was involved in this situation from the outside. And the name may sound familiar, William Randolph Hearst. And if you don't know that last name, basically these days, it's still, that person is still in the news these days, because basically it is Patty Hearst, and basically it was her family who owned the paper. It was one of the biggest magazines and papers back then, and it kind of has a little connection to basically another person who was accused also of misconduct. Now you may ask yourself, what does Chris Hardwick have to do with William Randolph Hearst? Well, if you haven't been paying attention to the Chris Hardwick situation, where he was accused by his ex of sexual assault and all that, Chris Hardwick is currently married to Lydia Hearst, which is Patty Hearst's daughter. And Patty Hearst, they're the grandkids of William Randolph Hearst. So we have a bit of a connection there from the 1920s to today. So, but getting back to it, William Randolph Hearst, he always looking for the story. He wanted, to sell papers and all that. Now, getting to the girl herself, a lot of people used to say that she was a party girl, this, and that, blah, blah, blah. She used to rip off her clothes and stuff like that. Well, what happened was the party got wild, and the outcome was that basically she died. And it came to the point where Fatty Arbuckle was accused of rape and murder. And, well, at first it was rape, then it was murder. It was a bit of a mixture. And a lot of the stories were very conflicted at the time. And basically, a lot of the witnesses had said, well, he took her in there. He dragged her in there. Says, I loved you, and I always wanted you, this, and that. But, see, the thing about it is, the overlying thing is, and you hear from the other end, is that she was taking off her clothes and dancing around and acting crazy. But what most people didn't realize, you hear the terminology bathtub gin. Prohibition era made very strong liquor in those days. Because basically they were trying to get it fast, get it out. Sometimes it was a little stronger than normal. And, a lot of people drank then. Because basically, hey, it was illegal. That was the thing to do. But it turned out to be that basically she had peritonitis, resulting from a ruptured bladder caused by a pre-existing condition. She was she was ill, and most people didn't know that she was ill. The reason why she would rip off her clothes, it was that she used to sweat a lot because of her illness. I mean, she would vomit. She'd take off her clothes. I mean, a lot of the stuff that back then we didn't understand. A lot of the stuff, a lot of the diseases and illnesses and stuff like that back then. And basically, what happened was, they said, the people at the hospital, they said, she was raped. And then, there was accusations that basically Fatty laid on her. And Fatty was a big guy. He was not a small guy. He was pretty much a big guy. And that basically when he was raping her, he crushed her to death. That was the wild things. And, this was what was selling newspapers at the time. And basically, Hearst used to say that he wanted to sell more papers than the sinking of the Lusitania at the time. Okay? So, basically what happened was Fatty Arbuckle was arrested. He was basically taken to trial. And, you had so many people that were like, they were going against him, saying, yeah, he did it, and this and that. Yeah, I know I saw him do it. We went up, a lot of people, basically telling stories that basically they didn't know the situation. A lot of people were drunk. And, they went through the whole thing, and I'll tell you, they went through several trials. There was a lot of and the reason why was the autopsy report. And if you look at the autopsy report, the autopsy had no marks of violence on the body, no signs that the girl's been attacked in any way. And there were some witnesses that collaborated some of the actor's version, Fatty Arbuckle's version, that basically he took her up to the room to put her down because she wasn't feeling well, went into the restroom, cleaned himself out, went back out, continued with the party, came back, dead. But basically, you had all this media hoopla and people thinking that, this guy, oh man, he was a big, heavy guy. He was not the handsomest looking fellow in the world, And, I mean, the hotel room, the place was wrecked. And when you hear this story, it's like, 1920s, he had to have done it. But basically, when it came down to the evidence, and like I said, facts and evidence, very important. always very important. By the time he was found innocent of the whole thing, his career was done. And it just basically it just really, really hurt him. Even the jury read an apology statement saying, well, we wish him success and we hope that the American people will take the judgment of 14 men and women that Roscoe Arbuckle is entirely innocent and free from all blame. I mean, that is just it kind of hits you when you hear stories like this, that you get blamed for murder or rape, and it just, the stories start to fly. And, everyone takes it that, he did it. Oh my God, he did it. I know he did it. What does that sound like today? What does that really sound like to you? Yeah, you're right. It sounds like what's happening with Vic. And this is the reason why I talked about this. There were other many stories. I could have talked about Tawana Brawley. That was a mess in itself. I mean, holy crap. If you ever, because we're up past, I think we're just passing the anniversary on Tawana Brawley. Look at that case. That was a shocker as well. But when you look at it from this perspective, from 1920 to present day, we haven't changed a bit, have we? We hear something and we pass it on, and we pass it on, and basically we find people guilty without really knowing what the evidence is. No matter if they have it in front of you and it says, well, I know this is what happened. This is what, basically, they say, this person told me this happened. Or the person that is accusing, the person that was raped said, this person did it. But, it didn't happen. Or basically they thought it happened, but it was something different that happened. Or the person that they thought they did, they thought they were accusing, wasn't the person that did it. So we have to think to a perspective that we have to take it easy when we have accusations. If you think that they're guilty, that's fine and dandy. But we don't need to throw people under the bus when it comes to this situation. Let justice go through their process. If this is going to go to court, fine and dandy. If it doesn't go to court, it's not enough evidence. You want to keep it in your mind that he's guilty? Fine. But don't take away his livelihood until you know that he's guilty. He doesn't deserve, no one deserves to lose their livelihood on accusations without being put on trial. Once again, innocent until proven guilty. Facts and evidence. Very, very important. So, let's continue this conversation in the comments below, because that's very, very important. Now, Wednesday we're gonna change the gears a little bit, unless something majorly happens with this whole situation, which I think it's just starting to balance out a little bit, because there's been, like I said, there's a lot of going on. Like I said, people being banned on Twitter for this. It's just becoming, it's crazy. So, also, I'd like to thank the people for the comments below, everybody that's been talking about this. It's been a nice conversation. Now, to those who use a bit higher language, try to keep it toned. Change the words, especially the 4-letter ones. Let's keep those out. Because I know that there was a couple of comments that were very, very angry. We didn't post them because of the language. If you want to repost them again with a more acceptable language, you could change the word itself, and you could use other words, replacement. Frack is one. Battlestar Galactica, people said frack, which is okay, and I'll okay that. but we got to be careful what we say. Also, I want to thank about all my new subscribers that have joined us over the weekend. Welcome aboard. Hope you enjoy a lot of the programming that we have here on Madman with the Show and Q to Cast TV. So, until Wednesday, hopefully things will calm down and we can breathe a bit, and hopefully you can ingest these stories. I would advise you go look up these stories, take a look at them. I gave you only just a brief synopsis of each of these stories. There's a lot more to these stories, especially the Fatty Arbuckle one. The Fatty Arbuckle one, I would suggest go through the history. The other one is the Tawana Brawley case. Go through that one as well. New York Times has a small video with interviews and stuff like that. That's really, really interesting. It's online on YouTube. And once again, until Wednesday, I hope you have a good day. I think it's going to snow on this end of the world because we're on the East Coast. Supposedly, I know we had a little snow last night, and it all melted out real quick. But we're going to change gears on Wednesday, and there's some things we're working on, and let's see what happens. And also, next week, don't forget, it is the 36th anniversary of the Rabbit T. Rabbit Show. 36 years. And if you're one of my new subscribers, flip down on it. Check it out. It's from our early days. Even though I'm a new channel, but I've been doing this a long time, long before this, long before YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. It's my old public access days. A friend of mine, Richard Concepcion, who departed us back in 2017. And basically a show that's been on for many, many years. Enjoy the best of down there. And we'll see you on Wednesday. So don't forget, hold up a cup of coffee. Like me. Don't give me a popularity award. It's game over, folks. Don't forget to insert the next coin. Bye-bye now.